Emergency response team, what's the situation?
We need an ambulance now. A trainer's been pulled under.
The beast tries to pin the trainer under the water. Looks like love to me.
Victoria Emergency Services. Please state the nature of your emergency.
It's Sealand, our marine park. One of our trainers.
Until he gathers the strength to jilt Miss...
She's in the whale pool. The orcas, they've got her. They won't let her up.
Are you saying the whales are attacking a trainer?
Yes. She keeps...
Bossy. Poor thing. I hope he lets her down gently.
surfacing, screaming, but they're dragging her under again. We can't get to her.
You're sitting in a packed stadium, watching a beautiful show with a massive killer whale performing amazing tricks. The crowd is cheering, children are laughing, and everything seems perfect. Then, in just a few seconds, everything changes. The performing whale suddenly turns into a deadly predator, and what started as family fun becomes a nightmare that no one will ever forget. This is exactly what happened to Maris Ellington, a brave young woman who dedicated her life to working with these incredible ocean giants. Her story is one of the most shocking and heartbreaking incidents in marine park history, and today, we're going to tell you exactly what happened on that terrible day. But before we dive into this tragic story, I want you to understand that what you're about to hear is not just about one incident. This is about a much bigger problem that affects these amazing animals and the people who work with them. So grab a snack, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for a story that will change how you think about marine parks forever. Let's travel to sunny San Diego, California, where Blue Horizon Oceanic Park was once one of the most popular destinations for families who love marine life. This wasn't just any ordinary aquarium. This place was special. It had state-of-the-art tanks, beautiful dolphin shows, and colorful coral reef displays that made visitors feel like they were swimming in the ocean. But the real star of Blue Horizon was Neptune, and let me tell you, Neptune was not your average whale. This magnificent creature was absolutely massive. Picture a school bus, and now imagine something even bigger. Neptune was 20 feet long and weighed an incredible 10,000 pounds. That's heavier than 4 cars put together. His black and white body moved through the water like a graceful giant, and when he performed his tricks, thousands of people would cheer and applaud. Every single week, Neptune performed 6 different shows, and each one was packed with excited families. Kids would press their faces against the glass, adults would take countless pictures, and everyone left feeling amazed by what they had seen. Neptune wasn't just an animal to the park owners. He was their money-making machine. The ticket sales from his shows kept the entire park running. But here's where the story gets really important, and you need to pay attention to this part. Behind all the cheers and applause, something was going terribly wrong. The trainers who work with Neptune every single day started noticing that he was acting strange. He would slam his powerful tail against the walls of his tank so hard that the sound echoed through the entire building. Sometimes, when trainers asked him to do a trick, he would just ignore them completely and swim away. Now, you might think this doesn't sound too serious. After all, don't all animals have bad days sometimes? But when you're dealing with a 10,000-pound predator, every small sign matters. The trainers knew something was wrong, and they tried to warn the people in charge of the park. They said Neptune was becoming dangerous, and that maybe he needed a break from performing. But here's the sad truth about what happened next. The park managers didn't want to listen to these warnings. You see, Neptune was making them so much money that they couldn't imagine stopping his shows, even for a little while. They thought about all the tickets they would lose, all the disappointed families, and all the money that wouldn't come into park. So they made a decision that would later prove to be the worst mistake they ever made. They decided to keep the shows going, no matter what. This brings us to Maris Ellington, the young woman whose life will be changed forever by this decision. Maris was 27 years old, and she had spent her entire life dreaming of working with marine animals. She grew up on the beautiful, rocky coast of Oregon, where she would spend hours watching seals, dolphins, and whales in their natural habitat. The ocean called to her in a way that's hard to explain, and she knew from a very young age that she wanted to dedicate her life to protecting and understanding these incredible creatures. After years of studying hard in school, Maris earned her degree in marine biology. This isn't an easy subject. It requires learning about chemistry, physics, animal behavior, and so much more. But Maris was determined, and when she finally got the job at Blue Horizon, she felt like all her dreams were coming true. She was going to work with Neptune, the most famous whale in the park, and she was so excited about the opportunity. Maris quickly became Neptune's primary trainer, which meant she spent more time with him than anyone else. She learned all of his favorite foods, understood his different moods, and developed what she thought was a special bond with him. When other trainers expressed concerns about Neptune's behavior, Maris would brush off their worries. She truly believed that she understood Neptune better than anyone else, and that their connection would keep her safe. But there was one trainer who was much more worried than the rest. This person had been working with marine animals for many years and had seen things that made them very concerned about Neptune's mental state. This experienced trainer noticed that Neptune was becoming more and more isolated from other whales, more aggressive during training sessions, and more unpredictable in his reactions. They were so worried that they went to the park management with a serious request. The senior trainer asked the managers to either retire Neptune completely or at least take him out of the public shows for a while. They explained that Neptune's behavior was showing all the warning signs of a whale that was under too much stress and might become dangerous. They had seen this pattern before, and they knew it rarely ended well. But once again, the park management said no. They couldn't afford to lose their star attraction, especially during the busy tourist season. The senior trainer was so frustrated and worried about everyone's safety that they made a difficult decision. They quit their job in protest, hoping that their dramatic action would make the managers realize how serious the situation was. Unfortunately, their departure only made things worse. Now there was one less experienced person around to help handle Neptune, and Maris became even more confident that she could manage him on her own. She had no idea that she was walking into a situation that would soon spiral completely out of control. The day that changed everything started just like any other day at Blue Horizon. The California sun was shining brightly. Families were arriving with their children, and the excitement in the air was contagious. Maris had already completed one show with Neptune earlier that morning, and everything had gone perfectly. Neptune had performed all his tricks. The crowd had loved the show, and Maris felt confident and happy. As the afternoon show approached, the amphitheater began filling up with about 500 people. There were families with small children, teenagers on school trips, elderly couples, and tourists from all over the world. Everyone was chatting excitedly, taking pictures, and looking forward to seeing the famous Neptune perform his incredible tricks. Before the show began, Maris and the other trainers met to review their safety procedures one more time. This was something they did before every show, going over hand signals, emergency plans, and what to do if something went wrong. Maris reassured her colleagues that Neptune seemed to be in a good mood that day. She had spent time with him before the show, and he appeared calm and ready to perform. As the music started playing and the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, the energy in the amphitheater became electric. The crowd cheered as Neptune's massive form glided into performance tank. His dorsal fin, which was taller than most people, cut through the water like a black knife. For a moment, everything felt magical and perfect. The show began exactly as it was supposed to. Under Maris's careful guidance, Neptune performed his opening routines flawlessly. He jumped through the air, splashed the front rows of the audience, and responded to every signal that Maris gave him. The crowd was absolutely loving it, and for a brief moment, it seemed like all the earlier concerns about Neptune's behavior had been unnecessary. But then came the finale, the part of the show that everyone always looked forward to the most. This was called the synchronized swim, where Maris would actually get into the water with Neptune, and they would swim together like dance partners. It was the most beautiful and impressive part of the entire performance, and always left the audience absolutely amazed. Maris slipped into the cool water, just as she had done hundreds of times before. Neptune began circling around her, his massive body moving gracefully through the water. Everything looked completely normal, and the audience was holding their breath in anticipation of the spectacular finale they were about to witness. Maris gave Neptune the signal to perform a breach, which meant he should jump out of the water alongside her in a perfectly coordinated move. For just a moment, it looked like Neptune was going to do exactly what he was supposed to do. He seemed to be positioning himself correctly, and Maris felt confident that everything was going according to plan. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Without any warning at all, Neptune suddenly veered away from the planned routine. Instead of performing the gentle breach that the audience was expecting, he turned toward Maris with a speed and intensity that no one had ever seen from him before. His behavior completely shifted from that of a trained performer to something much more primitive and terrifying. Neptune lunged at Maris with incredible force, and his powerful jaws clamped down around her midsection. The impact was so violent that it lifted her entire body up out of the water, and for a brief, horrible moment, she was suspended in the air while Neptune's teeth dug into her body. The audience could hear her gasp of pain and shock before Neptune yanked her back down beneath the surface. The screams from the audience were immediate and piercing. Parents covered their children's eyes. People jumped up from their seats, and the joyful atmosphere turned into pure terror in just seconds. No one could believe what they were seeing. This was supposed to be a fun family show, not a life-or-death struggle between a human and a massive predator. But Neptune wasn't finished. What happened next was even more terrifying than the initial attack. He began thrashing Maris around like she was a toy, slamming her body against the walls of the tank with tremendous force. Every few seconds, her lifeless form would break the surface of the water, giving the horrified audience a glimpse of what was happening, before Neptune would drag her back down again. The other trainers on platform immediately jumped into action, but they were facing an almost impossible situation. How do you stop a 10,000-pound animal that has completely lost control? They tried everything they could think of. They threw brightly colored buoys and ropes into the water, hoping to distract Neptune. They emptied buckets of his favorite fish into the tank, trying to get his attention. Two trainers even grabbed long poles that were designed to gently guide the whales, but Neptune's violent movements made it far too dangerous for them to get close enough to help. For over a minute, which felt like an eternity to everyone watching, Neptune continued his brutal attack on Maris. Her body was being thrown around like a rag doll, and it became clear to everyone that she was no longer conscious. The water around them turned red, and the sound of the impact echoed to the now silent amphitheater. Finally, as suddenly as the attack had begun, Neptune released his grip on Maris. Her motionless body floated to the surface of the tank, and the full horror of what had just happened became clear to everyone watching. Emergency divers, who had been standing by during the show, immediately jumped into the water and pulled Maris to the side of the tank, where medical teams were already waiting. The paramedics worked desperately to save Maris's life, performing CPR and trying every medical procedure they knew, but the injuries she had suffered were simply too severe for any human body to survive. She had multiple broken ribs, a punctured lung, and massive internal damage from the crushing force of Neptune's attack. Despite all their efforts, Maris was pronounced dead right there at the scene. The aftermath of this tragedy was immediate and chaotic. Park security quickly evacuated all 500 shocked and traumatized audience members from the amphitheater. Emergency vehicles swarmed the park, and within hours, the entire area was sealed off with yellow tape. News crews arrived to report on the story, and by that evening, the tragedy at Blue Horizon was being discussed on television stations around the world. Blue Horizon's management made the decision to suspend all whale shows immediately, and this suspension eventually became permanent. They realized that they could never put another trainer in the water with Neptune or any other whale after what had happened to Maris. But the consequences of this tragedy went far beyond just ending the shows. Maris's parents, who had lost their only child in this horrific accident, decided to take legal action against Blue Horizon. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit, accusing the park of being negligent and ignoring the clear warning signs that Neptune was becoming dangerous. The lawsuit revealed some disturbing facts about what had been happening behind the scenes at Blue Horizon. It showed that multiple trainers had expressed concerns about Neptune's behavior, that an experienced trainer had actually quit in protest over safety issues, and that the park's management had chosen to prioritize profits over the safety of their employees. The legal case was eventually settled out of court, with Blue Horizon agreeing to pay a substantial amount of money to Maris's family. As part of the settlement, the park also promised to support marine conservation efforts and to fund research into the mental health of whales living in captivity. But perhaps the most significant impact of this tragedy was how it changed the entire marine park industry. The death of Maris Ellington sent shockwaves through parks all over the world, forcing them to reconsider the risks of keeping these massive predators in captivity and having humans work so closely with them. Blue Horizon itself never recovered from the incident. Without their star attraction Neptune, attendance at the park dropped dramatically. Families were afraid to visit, and the park's reputation was permanently damaged. Within just a few years, Blue Horizon filed for bankruptcy and was forced to close its doors forever. As for Neptune, he was eventually moved to a marine sanctuary in British Columbia, Canada, where he could live in a more natural environment. The sanctuary provided him with much more space to swim, cleaner water, and less stress than he had experienced at the theme park. While he could never be released into the wild after spending so many years in captivity, this new home was a significant improvement over his previous situation. The story of Maris Ellington and Neptune is not just a single tragic incident. It's part of a much larger pattern that has been repeated at marine parks around the world. Over the years, there have been dozens of documented cases where captive whales have attacked their trainers, sometimes with fatal results. These incidents have taught us some important lessons about these incredible animals. Orcas, which are also called killer whales, are among the most intelligent creatures on Earth. In the wild, they live in complex family groups, travel hundreds of miles through the ocean, and engage in sophisticated hunting behaviors. They have their own languages, their own cultures, and their own social structures that scientists are still trying to understand. When these highly intelligent and social animals are placed in the artificial environment of a marine park, they often develop psychological problems similar to what humans might experience if they were locked in a small room for years. They become frustrated, depressed, and sometimes aggressive. Their natural behaviors are suppressed, and they're forced to perform tricks that have nothing to do with their normal way of life. The tragedy of Maris Ellington forces us to ask some difficult questions about marine parks and whether it's right to keep these magnificent creatures in captivity for our entertainment. While these parks often claim that they're helping to educate people about marine life and supporting conservation efforts, critics argue that the harm done to individual animals outweighs any potential benefits. Today, there is a growing movement of people who believe that whales and dolphins belong in the ocean, not in concrete tanks. Many countries have banned or restricted the capture of wild marine mammals for entertainment purposes, and some existing marine parks have begun transitioning their animals to sanctuaries or have stopped breeding programs altogether. The story of Maris Ellington reminds us that these beautiful, powerful creatures are not meant to be entertainers. They are wild animals with complex needs that cannot be met in artificial environments, no matter how well-designed those environments might be. When we force them into situations that go against their nature, tragedy often follows. Maris gave her life doing something she was passionate about, and her death was not in vain if it helps us learn to treat these amazing animals with the respect they deserve. Her story has inspired countless people to reconsider their relationship with marine parks and to support alternatives that allow whales to live more natural lives. The next time you see an advertisement for a marine park or whale show, remember Maris Ellington. Remember Neptune, who spent years in a concrete tank when he should have been swimming free in the vast Pacific Ocean. Remember that behind the spectacle and entertainment, there are real animals with real emotions, real needs, and real suffering. The ocean is calling these magnificent creatures home, and perhaps it's time we listened. If this story has moved you and made you think differently about marine parks and captive whales, please don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button to show your support for these incredible animals. Share this video with your friends and family to spread awareness about this important issue, and subscribe to our channel for more eye-opening stories that matter. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of these amazing creatures and ensure that tragedies like what happened to Maris Ellington never happen again. Your voice matters, and these animals need all the advocates they can get.